Mason Mount to Manchester United is official. Arsenal and West Ham finally reach an agreement for Declan Rice. That seems to be done and dusted, pending a medical, of course. Jurrien Timber seems to be next through the door at Arsenal. We'll talk a little bit about him as well going forward. Harvey Barnes, a massive race to sign him between several Premier League clubs, it seems. And Levi Colwill, could he be on the radar of Liverpool Football Club? Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. Welcome to an all-new news live stream. Another one in the all-new news series that we're talking about this summer, of course. Talking all the big headlines from the world of football. And lots of transfer stories to get into today. Lots of ones that we already seemingly knew about and knew where that conclusion was finally heading to. But we're going to just touch upon it a little bit just to tie up all the loose ends and everything on these kinds of deals. Like I say, we've got Mason Mount to talk about. He has officially signed for Manchester United today. That is done, dusted, official, confirmed, signed, sealed, and delivered as far as what Manchester United are concerned. Declan Rice is finally moving to Arsenal. That seems to be done and dusted, obviously pending a medical, of course, and that very rarely tends to put a stop on things. So that seems to be done and dusted as well. We've got Jurrien Timber to talk about, a little bit about Granit Xhaka as well. There's Harvey Barnes, there's Levi Colwill, and there's Andre Onana as well, all to talk about in today's live stream. Before we go any further, though, I would like to remind you to please like the video and also subscribe if you're new. Both things are always and probably greatly appreciated. And also, I encourage you to get involved in the comment section as well. I'm sure you have a lot of interesting thoughts, comments, opinions, predictions, feelings, whatever you want to call it on any of these stories or any stories I'm not talking about and that you guys want to talk about. Throw it all in there in the comment section. Would love to hear from you all, regardless about what it is. I'm sure it'll all make for great and interesting reading and will help the stream along nicely. So do get involved in there. I do encourage it. Otherwise, enjoy the stream and let's get into it. Let's talk Mason Mount first of all. We knew that obviously for the past 24 to 48 hours or so, his medical has been taking place at Manchester United. It's all about tying up all the loose ends as far as what this transfer saga has been about since obviously it began. And finally, it does appear it's all done and dusted. It's all done and dusted. It's been officially announced today that Mason Mount has officially signed for Manchester United. That is done, dusted, official, confirmed, signed, sealed, and delivered. Mason Mount is a Manchester United player. Now, I've talked about this a fair amount across this transfer window so far, and I've constantly been consistent on this. I've been consistent on my thoughts on Mason Mount. I've said that he's a good player. I've said that he may get a bit of a bad reputation from some Chelsea fans in particular who may be happy to see the back of him. I know that obviously his sort of goodbye video hasn't exactly gone down too well with the fan base. But at the same time, I think there is a good player in there, and I think Chelsea will somewhat regret maybe not pushing the boat out more to try and keep him to a certain extent. But at the same time, I think it would do him the world of good. A fresh start away from Chelsea, a different start, a start under Erik ten Hag, which, you know, so far under his reign as manager at Manchester United has managed to somehow in some way get the best out of some of the more mediocre sort of players of Manchester United. I'm not saying Rashford's mediocre, but he has improved upon Marcus Rashford from a couple of seasons gone by. The more mediocre players I am talking about are the likes of, you know, your Luke Shaws, your Aaron Wan-Bissakas. He's helped them get better over this past season. I'm pretty sure Mason Mount will maybe have a similar sort of feel there, maybe with a bit more reliability and a bit more stability in that team with a manager that seems to be sticking around for the long haul, and obviously with players that are going to be there on a more reliable basis. Maybe that could benefit and aid Mason Mount in the long run to, of course, go on and put together some consecutive and consistent performances in a Manchester United shirt. Clean start could also do him the world of good as well. And for what he brings to the team in terms of he's got a bit of flair and a bit of creativity about him, but mainly it's about his energy, the engine he possesses, and the kind of box-to-box nature of Mason Mount. I think it will complement the likes of Bruno Fernandes and Casemiro in that midfield in particular. So I do think that this is a very, very good move by Manchester United to bring in a player of this caliber with these kinds of traits and attributes that Mason Mount obviously possesses, to obviously go forward, help complement the team. And of course, as a little bit of an extra bonus, he does obviously fit in with their English homegrown quota. So that's all benefit for Manchester United as far as what I can see from the outside looking in. Of course, I don't agree with the fee. 60 million is definitely not what I would have paid for Mason Mount. And I was saying that when he was linked with Liverpool, of course, that although I see a good player in there to an extent, and I think that Klopp could have got the best out of him, I don't agree with the price tag that Chelsea was set out in the kind of region of 60 to 70 million pounds. Obviously, that was lowered over time through negotiations and everything, but I still did not agree with that price tag. Still don't. And I know that obviously a lot has been thrown on because of the kind of homegrown English tax sort of thing that obviously does exist, even though it's not necessarily completely spoken about or completely there in big black bold letters saying English tax. We do know it somewhat exists in obviously the modern game and obviously within transfers. So we do know of that kind of nature. But I genuinely think that this is a smart move by Manchester United. Is it the most perfect move? Is it the best move that United probably could have done? Arguably not. But when you consider English, homegrown, the type of midfielder he is, the type of midfielder that Manchester United needed, it does fit the bill and fit the specification, if you like, of what Manchester United were looking for. Do I agree with the price tag? Absolutely not. Do I agree that this is the most perfect transfer United could have made? Absolutely not. But it is a decent enough signing, and it obviously suits all parties. Chelsea get a considerable fee for him. Manchester United get the player that they want, and Mason Mount gets a fresh start in which he can go again, in which he can obviously perform on the Champions League stage for at least this season, in which he can obviously perform under a much more reliable and a bit more stable of a team in Manchester United. Remember, there are a lot of question marks surrounding Chelsea right now. I know that obviously Pochettino would have loved to have had Mason Mount in his team, as would a lot of managers, because regardless of what you and I both think of Mason Mount in terms of the kind of player that he may be, whether he's consistent enough, whether he's good enough, that kind of thing, every manager that has had him in their squad at one time or another, whether it be international level or whether it be club level, has absolutely loved and adored Mason Mount. He is a model professional. He is very professional, and every manager that has played under him seems to really like him. And he seems to have got something about him that makes managers like him. Maybe it's a sort of teacher's pet thing, maybe, but even managers that haven't obviously played under him, he was linked with Arsenal. So Mikel Arteta certainly has taken a shine to him. Jurgen Klopp took a shine to him because he wanted him at Liverpool at some stage during this summer. So there is definitely something about him that's completely model and completely professional about his approach to the game and everything. But it does seem that he was taken away by this sort of in-depth analysis of Erik ten Hag on his game, as reported by Melissa Reddy of Sky Sports, of course. So there does seem to be an admiration for Erik ten Hag from Mason Mount, and like I say, I think that this is going to do him the world of good to have a bit of a change, have a bit of a break, and like I say, with some reliability in that Manchester United team, Mason Mount, I think, will thrive to an extent. And besides, you don't need every position to be world class. And Manchester United fans should know this more than anyone else. United, or any team that has won the Premier League, have not always had a squad that is absolutely oozing and teeming to the brim of world class talent. players that are on the verge of being world class, players that are of a top quality. No one has ever had a full strength squad of that. I'd say even Manchester City right now haven't completely got a squad that is world class, that is full of quality, that is just oozing to the brim of that level and caliber of player. I'd look at the likes of, say, Nathan Ake. Now, as much as I like Nathan Ake, I don't think he's of a world class level. I'd say even Kyle Walker, to an extent, is not a world class defender. I'd say that Ederson, in my opinion, is not a world class goalkeeper. There are a few that I just don't see as being world class in that City team. Obviously, that's open up for debate and everything, but obviously, I don't see that. No Premier League team has ever had that. Mason Mount, in my opinion, is not world class, nor will he ever be world class, in my opinion. But he is a very good player. He's a very good squad player, and he's a very good industrious and utility sort of player. And you need those kinds of players. Again, United fans should know this more than others. Look at the teams that you had under Sir Alex Ferguson. Not everyone in that team was of a world-class level. Not everyone in that team was of a world-class level. They had players in there that were average to above average. Darren Fletcher is the prime example for me. He's one of them. He wasn't a guy that was world-class. He wasn't a guy that was, breaking down doors, ground-shattering, anything along those lines. He was just a solid, consistent player that would come in and do a job for the team. And he would do that job effectively. Kind of went under the radar maybe a little bit, some might say. But otherwise, was just a player that would come in, do a job, and that was it. He wasn't in the limelight as much. He wasn't in the spotlight as much. He didn't get the plaudits maybe that he deserved. But he did all the hard graft and the hard work. And he would not be a consistent starter by any means. He would come in for a game here and there. He'd come off the sub bench here and there. He'd be a solid acquisition to a team that needed these types of players to fill in gaps and to fill in different roles and different positions and different ways of playing and for different scenarios in different games. That was what Darren Fletcher had. Now, I think Mason Mount will go a bit of a step beyond that in terms of he's going to be a bit more of a regular starter. He's going to provide a bit more than what Darren Fletcher would have done. But at the same time, the point still remains that he's not world class, but you don't need to have world class in every single position. You just need players that are going to run through brick walls for you. You're going to need players that are going to be model professionals. You're going to need players that are going to give you everything in 90 minutes. And I know that Mason Mount has fallen off a little bit from when he first burst onto the scene. But, like I say, with Ten Hag, with the way that he started his Manchester United reign, with the way that Man United are right now in comparison to Chelsea, it does seem to be a decent uptake and a decent upgrade for Mason Mount to obviously get a bit more reliability, it seems, and a bit more stability in obviously the way that he wants to play, the way that he likes to play, and obviously in the way that he wants to enhance his career going forward. I think this is a good and solid move by all people, by all parties in this transfer. We'll see obviously how it turns out. We'll see obviously how this goes. But I'm very intrigued to know what Man United fans think on a Mason Mount, whether this is a good move for you, whether this is a bad move, whether you think this is overrated, whether you think this is actually an underrated signing. I'd love to know all those thoughts from Manchester United. And on top of that, of course, the icing on this particular cake is that Mason Mount will be taking the number 7 shirt worn by many greats up and down the years of Manchester United, the likes of Eric Cantona, of course, Cristiano Ronaldo, David Beckham, and of course, how could we forget Angel Di Maria? Of course we couldn't forget Memphis Depay. I mean, Michael Owen, no, Alexis Sanchez, Edison Cavani, no. George Best. We'll go with George Best, of course. So yeah, icing on top of the cake is that he'll be wearing a number 7 for next season. Mason Mount, though, officially signed for Manchester United. I think this is a good enough signing, not the most perfect of signings, not for the context of the money aspect and everything. But at the same time, I think this is a very good signing by Manchester United and a pretty smart one at that. Obviously, there's more to be done at Manchester United. This can only be the start, you would imagine, if you're a United fan, of course. This only needs to be the start of what is happening right now when it comes to Mason Mount, of course, and obviously this Man United team and how they're going to build for the forthcoming season. So we'll wait and see if United obviously do more. And obviously the news coming out today is that they're going to continue to pursue Andre Onana. Fabrizio Romano tweeted out moments ago pretty much that negotiations between Manchester United and Inter continue for Andre Onana after 34 million bid plus 5 million add-ons was rejected. Deal is absolutely on. So Manchester United fans, it seems that you are pursuing Andre Onana and obviously are not giving up anytime soon. Romano seems to think that a deal very much is on the cards going forward. It's just all about whether the negotiations between the two clubs can reach a suitable agreement. And like I say, I talked about Onana a fair amount during this transfer window as well. Onana, for me, would be the perfect goalkeeper for Manchester United in terms of what they are looking to achieve from passing the ball out from the back. He's a very, very, very good shot stopper, but he's an even better goalkeeper with his feet. I've said it time and time again that I personally believe that if he was to come into the Premier League, he instantly becomes the second best goalkeeper in that division, which annoys me because obviously he's going to Manchester United, so that frustrates me a lot. But at the same time, if I'm to be kind of neutral on this and be fair on my thoughts and my predictions, Onana would be a quality goalkeeper and a quality signing for Manchester United. And for me, it's a goalkeeper that United have needed for a long time in terms of obviously the way that the game is progressing and the game is evolving into having the goalkeeper as more of an outfield player and being able to obviously pass the ball out from the back with his feet more rather than just being your basic shot stopper. Onana ticks both of those boxes to a good enough level, in my opinion. I think he's a solid goalkeeper, a solid acquisition, and if United can get this over the line, fair play. Yeah, I can't I can't really say too much badly about it, as much as obviously I want to mock Manchester United and as much as I don't like them. I can't really say too much badly about this potential deal. So we'll wait and see if obviously anything does happen here. There's a long way to go in the negotiations, it seems, but it does seem very likely that Andre Onana will become a Manchester United player and goalkeeper at some point during this transfer window. And obviously with the news that obviously we know about Inter and their financial kind of position right now, United will obviously look to take advantage of that. And if that is to be the case, it only adds more weight onto the side of Manchester United and only adds to their favour, shall we say, in negotiations and in the dealings of this particular transfer story. So Andre Onana, we wait and see what happens there, but it does seem likely that he will become a Manchester United player come the end of this transfer window at some point during this transfer window. Declan Rice, this deal, this saga is finally coming to its conclusion, finally coming to an end. Everything seems to be now agreed. We're pending a medical. And obviously there's the tying up of loose ends as well that normally these transfer stories take. But Declan Rice to Arsenal is definitely... Well, I wouldn't say definitely, but it's pretty much done, dusted, and official as far as what we're concerned. David Ornstein reported last night that exclusive. Arsenal have reached total agreement with West Ham to sign Declan Rice. West Ham have now accepted Arsenal's payment structure on record, £100 million plus £5 million fee and add-ons. 24-year-old midfielder given permission to do medical and finalise personal terms. So everything is moving brilliantly there for Arsenal. I think this is a wonderful capture. Again, for the money aspect, is he worth over 100 million? Of course not. There is the English homegrown tax. Again, that is inserted pretty much into that contract without it actually stating that it is English homegrown tax. But at the same time, this is a wonderful piece of business by Arsenal. This is a guy that fits seamlessly and perfectly in with Mikel Arteta's system, in with the Arsenal squad as a whole. A perfect piece of business as far as what Arsenal are concerned. And again, I've been consistent in me saying that constantly and consecutively when talking about Declan Rice throughout this transfer window so far. I've said that he is a perfect fit for Arsenal, a wonderful signing. And, you know, there were some rough moments and there were some scary and shaky moments in the negotiation process of this. And obviously with Manchester City's possible interference in this transfer saga, it did maybe throw a bit of a spanner in the works for the Gunners, but at the same time, they managed to get the deal done and dusted. Everything is looking very, very good as far as what Arsenal are concerned. They've got their top target, and what a target it is. It enhances their midfield. It adds depth and quality to that midfield area. And for me, it is the perfect signing that Arsenal could have made. And, you know, a little bit jealous of the signing and the ambition and everything. But yeah, very much brilliantly well done by Arsenal. Jordan Hyman, hey dude, how are you doing on this Wednesday morning? Hope you are well, brother. Hope you are very well indeed. Hope you are doing well, sir. Nice to see you coming along in the chat and in the stream, of course. I hope you're doing well. But yeah, Declan Rice, done, dusted, almost official, pending a medical and some tying up of loose ends, of course. So we're waiting to see, obviously, when the official unveiling happens and how Arsenal will decide to unveil it, because that seems to be just as fun now as seeing all of these transfer saga. I'm going live today, bro, in the afternoon. Wicked, bro. I'll see if I can stop by and join in at some point. I should be free today going forward, so I'll definitely be looking forward to that, my dude. Yeah, I assume it'll have something to do with maybe Muller Rice or something. Could also have something to do with just a basic announcement, whatever it may be, because they're kind of fun now. They're kind of fun. I know that Burnley have really upped their game when it comes to announcing new signings. They've done it very, very well in the past. I know that obviously Brighton, with their new goalkeeper being the first name Bart, did a bit of a Simpsons sort of parody sort of thing when they were announcing their new signing. So it'll be interesting to see what Arsenal do. If it's going to be something to do with like Muller Rice or something, maybe. Although Muller Rice would have actually been good if they had actually signed Thomas Muller at the same time. So that would have been good. But obviously, I don't think that's going to happen. So we'll wait and see, obviously. But this one does seem to be done and dusted. I think it's a perfect signing. I think it's the perfect signing by Arsenal. I think it is an insane signing by Arsenal. And, you know, I rate it highly. I definitely rate it highly. So we'll wait and see how this one turns out. But for me, perfect signing by Arsenal. Declan Rice is a Arsenal player, it seems, pending a medical. And they've got their top target. And we're waiting to see what happens next. And what could happen next is trigger a bit of a domino effect, because Granit Xhaka seems to be certainly on his way out of Arsenal. A bit of a domino effect, this one. It seems that obviously Arsenal were waiting for confirmation that Declan Rice was going to be an Arsenal player. And we obviously knew that Granit Xhaka had seemingly had this deal sort of arranged in the pipeline to go to Bayer Leverkusen, with obviously the news that Declan Rice will be going to Arsenal. So the trigger effect here is that obviously Granit Xhaka will be going to Bayer Leverkusen as Declan Rice joins Arsenal. So that seems to be the sort of domino effect there. whether or not it will have a completed domino effect with a Bayer Leverkusen midfielder going to West Ham, or maybe there's another domino in the mix that will eventually lead back to West Ham, remains to be seen, of course. But no, it's fantastic by Arsenal. A brilliant move by the Gunners. And then, of course, now they're seemingly turning their attention to Jurrien Timber. Ben Jacobs reports that Jurrien Timber will be next in for Arsenal after Declan Rice. As revealed, an agreement in principle has been in place between Arsenal and Ajax for days. Timber expected to undergo a medical in the coming days if all goes to plan. So it does seem Arsenal are not resting on their laurels. They're not waiting around to obviously stop and admire the signing of Declan Rice. They're getting straight back into the business side of things. And it seems that Jurrien Timber is going to be next through the door. And again, we spoke about Jurrien Timber in this transfer window already. A defender that I admire, a defender that I like the physical presence of, the aerial ability of, the strength of, the kind of ball playing progression of. This is a guy who I think will enhance Arsenal's defensive side of things and will add quality and depth to that back line. Does he come in as a backup to the likes of Saliba? Does he come in and replace Gabriel? Remains to be seen. Personally, for me, Timber and Saliba should be Arsenal's starting centre-back pairings, but we will obviously wait and see on that one what happens there. In my opinion, I like Timber. Obviously, he's been highly rated for a while. He's been linked to the likes of Manchester United and Arsenal for some time now. So this one seems to be a move that will go down very well with the Arsenal fan base. And you can't deny that they are making some big moves and they're showing a bit of ambition. Maybe after Timber, maybe they go for Tchouaméni. We've talked about Tchouaméni as well. He's a player that's been heavily linked with a move to Arsenal. Whether that happens or not remains to be seen. I have my somewhat doubts, but again, if the money is on the table, if the money is there for Arsenal to play with, why not throw it at Tchouaméni to, again, further enhance a midfield that will only go stronger if, obviously, that is to be the case, and obviously Tchouaméni is to go. I think they'll need to shift out some dead wood. Maybe the likes of Sambi Lokonga and El Neni already in that midfield that are taking up some space might have to be shifted out if they can find someone to obviously take those kinds of players. And then maybe a backup right winger, perhaps. Maybe that could be on the cards for Arsenal. Maybe another striker. There has been some talk about Dusan Vlahovic, obviously being linked with Chelsea, and we know that in the past Arsenal have been linked with him. Could something like that reignite itself between the Serbian and the Gunners? Obviously remains to be seen, but there is a lot to be optimistic and excited about if you're an Arsenal fan right now. They are seemingly doing some big business and they are seemingly getting things done. Like, I know that obviously this Declan Rice thing has dragged its heels a little bit and has taken its time, and there were, like I say, a few scary moments where it seemed like maybe Edu and Richard Garlick may have egg on their face in terms of obviously maybe missing out on these types of transfers and these types of targets. But it seems that that is done, dusted, and official. And yeah, like I say, it's very interesting stuff if you're Arsenal right now. And obviously from the outside looking in, a little bit jealous and a little bit annoyed, but at the same time, yeah, if I'm to be neutral, you can only admire the kind of work that they're doing and the kind of strengthening that they're showing and the ambition that they are showing as well for the forthcoming season. So fair play to Arsenal. It seems they've got their top target. We'll wait and see how well Declan Rice does at his new club. We've talked Mason Mount, we've talked Andre Onana, we've talked Declan Rice, we've talked Granit Xhaka, we've talked Jurrien Timber. Next up, Harvey Barnes. Harvey Barnes, shifting gears to Harvey Barnes, the Leicester winger, who's been attracting a lot of interest from many a Premier League club this summer already. We already heard about how Tottenham attempted to sign him along with James Maddison earlier on this summer. We already know that obviously James Maddison has signed for Tottenham. Could Harvey Barnes be following suit there, or is there another Premier League suitor in the mix? Well, according to several sources, there are many suitors. that are seemingly circulating and monitoring the situation surrounding Harvey Barnes. Tottenham being one of them, of course. Tottenham seemingly looking at this guy. Maybe the signing, though, of what's his name? Solomon. Is it Solomon? Oh, what is the who did Tottenham just sign? Let me just have a look quickly because it's going to annoy me. Mano Solomon. Yeah, Mano Solomon. Maybe with the signing of Mano Solomon, maybe this has kind of dampened things down maybe a little bit for Tottenham. I know it was obviously a free transfer for Solomon, but at the same time, maybe they can now look at maybe other areas. And obviously, being a left winger himself, maybe Solomon will take up that spot, and maybe Tottenham will now move on to another alternative in another position, perhaps. Harvey Barnes, though, if he does miss out on Tottenham, doesn't seem to have many or cause for concern when it comes to a lack of options, shall we say. Allegedly, Aston Villa, West Ham, and Newcastle are also involved in the potential of signing him this summer. Either one of those teams will benefit from having Harvey Barnes, a player who a winger who has definitely grown so much these past few years whilst playing for Leicester. He's obviously made 187 appearances for Leicester. He scored 45 goals and assisted 32 times. And in the Premier League, he's made 146 of those appearances, as well as scoring 35 goals and assisting 25 times. It's not a bad return for a winger that has obviously grown a lot. He's 25 years old still, so he's on the verge of entering his prime, but still got several years left at playing at a very good to top level. And I think that for any one of these teams, he can definitely provide something and a spark for any one of these sides. When you look at West Ham, for example, you see a very good counter-attacking side that can only benefit from having Harvey Barnes in that side. Maybe with the Declan Rice money, they'll look to reinvest it in other areas as well as maybe a replacement for Declan Rice. Harvey Barnes could definitely fit the bill, and I think he would help them in terms of their counter-attacking style and approach, and I think it is a very good fit there. For Aston Villa, it could be somewhat similar. Again, they sit with a bit of a deep line, a deep defensive line, and that can obviously spring forward on the counter-attack. And with the likes of Ollie Watkins at the helm as well, you would imagine that maybe those two could benefit. A bit of an England connection, but also a quick, pacey, and, somewhat very direct and dynamic sort of forward line there. For Newcastle, adds depth, adds quality. And of course, with them out being in the Champions League this season, they will need to bolster their squad as much as possible. Harvey Barnes could definitely provide an option for that. Whether or not it's going to benefit them with their approach, maybe not as much or effectively as what it might affect a more counter-attacking style of Aston Villa and West Ham, but I still think he would do a good job under Eddie Howe with the way that they play, the way that he's direct, the way that he can somewhat link up play to a good ability, and can obviously get better with age and experience. So Newcastle will have that pull of Champions League football. West Ham have obviously got Europa League football. Aston Villa have got Europa Conference League football. It's all about where Barnes thinks is best for him. Obviously, I would probably say that with the ambition and with the level that they're currently at, Newcastle may represent a overall package and an overall level of ambition and a level that Barnes would jump at the chance at playing. But it could work for any one of these teams, I think. And any one of these teams that does manage to pick up Harvey Barnes, I think will have a very good player on their hands. We'll wait and see, obviously, what happens with Barnes, whether or not he actually does go to one of these teams going forward or wherever he does go. But we'll wait and see on that one. Saturn Rowan, hey dude, how are you doing on this Wednesday afternoon? Hope you are well, my friend. Hope you are well indeed. Thank you for coming along to the stream and getting involved. So thank you for that. Obviously, I want to know your thoughts on Mason Mount. Obviously, being a Man United fan and everything, I would love to know your thoughts on Mason Mount and how you think he will do as in that number 7 shirt of Manchester United. So, would love to know your thoughts, my bro. But yeah, Harvey Barnes, a lot of options open to him. Waiting to see obviously where his future does lie, but I think it would benefit any one of these teams that are rumored to be interested in him. West Ham seem to be the closest, but that isn't to say that Newcastle or Aston Villa couldn't come in with a last second bid in order to tempt him away. Very excited about Mount. Fair enough. I think it's pretty much divided, at least from what I've seen across social media and Twitter. I think that United fans are a little bit divided on Mount. I personally think that if this is a overall package in terms of, maybe you bring in an Amrabat as well and you get Onana and you get a striker, I think that as an overall package, I think that could enhance Mount even further. But it can't be the be all and end all. You know what I mean? Like, it can't just be Mount and that be it. There's got to be more to it. This has got to be the start, and United have got to progress on and push on from here. So, yeah, I get what you're saying. But like I said, I just think from what I've seen, it does seem to be a bit of a division in the United fan base when it comes to Mason Mount. So, interesting to see what the thoughts are on that. Didn't expect the number 7 though. Pressure comes with it. Yeah, I already raffled off like a few names that have wore that number 7 shirt over the years at Man United. The likes of George Best and David Beckham and Cristiano Ronaldo, of course, and I think Brian Robson was it. Was he number 7? I'm pretty sure he was number 7. And then, of course, I went to your more recent names that have wore the number 7 shirt. Angel Di Maria, for example. Edinson Cavani, for example. Michael Owen, of course. Who else was my personal favourite? Memphis Depay, of course, and of course Alexis Sanchez. So yeah, a lot of pressure with that number 7 shirt. It is obviously a very infamous shirt at Manchester United for both good and bad reasons. As every shirt pretty much is at every other club. So yeah, I get what you're saying. I agree with you. Mount is not enough. We need Onana, a CDM backup striker. I agree. A CDM backup is definitely needed because Casemiro is not going to be able to play every single game this season for Manchester United, especially when you consider that the intensity is going to be cranked up a level this season with the Champions League obviously coming back to Manchester United and Old Trafford this year. Onana, definitely the goalkeeper situation needs to be sorted, and I think Onana is the perfect choice for Manchester United. And obviously a striker, like you say. Yeah, a striker is definitely needed because otherwise I see you maybe having a bit of a Chelsea season, which defensively you might be solid, but up front you might be missing plenty of chances. And although the likes of Rashford and Fernandes will be able to bail you out from time to time, I don't see them being sustainable options going forward in terms of winning a lot of games. You may draw many and that could cost you some very valuable points. Trust me, as a Liverpool fan that has seen my team only lose 1 game or 2 games over the years in a single season to still not win the Premier League title and draw many games that have obviously cost us Premier League titles. I know. So, yeah, I 100% understand you. What do you think of Mount playing in the number 8 role in the United team? He has always played as a number 10 for Chelsea. I think with his energy, it matches the number 8 role more. He has got a bit of creativity about him. He has obviously got a bit of flair about him. He's got a bit of, ball carrying ability about him. But at the same time, I think with the energy that he provides, I think with the legs he's got in midfield, I think the number 8 role would suit him more than being a number 10. So I more see him as a number 8 than a number 10. But he does have that versatility about him, so he could always just switch there if needs be. I just think it's a good signing overall. I think it's a good signing. Not the best, not the most perfect, but a good signing overall. Fat Baby Ambiance, big up to you, brother. Hope you are well. Thank you for coming along to the stream. Hope you are doing well, my dude. Yeah, I'm all good, mate. I'm all good. So thank you for that. Would love to know if you have any thoughts or comments on any of the stories that I'm talking about. Would make for interesting and great reading, I'm sure. So yeah, Mason Mount, I prefer that, to be honest. He's very versatile. So yeah, I agree with your points. Like I say, I think it's a good move. Like, I don't agree with the money. Do not agree with the money by any stretch of the imagination. But for a 24-year-old midfielder who will help bring balance to that midfield, help the likes of Casemiro and Bruno Fernandes focus solely on playing their own game in their own roles, and he will have the role as just being the engine in that midfield, running up and down the pitch for 90 minutes, winning the ball back, moving the ball forward, and trying to get into the box very late to provide an extra body in the box, try and provide an extra attacking threat from afar, chips in with the odd goal or the odd assist here and there. I can only see it being a very good addition to a Man United side that needs this type of player. You bring in Amrabat as well, which you're being talked about and raved about as doing. You bring in Onana. You bring in a striker, maybe a defender, if you have enough money left over, even if it's maybe like a loan for a defender, just to be a bit of a stopgap for the next season. I think that beefs up your team enough to go again for next season. And like I say, with Ten Hag being already ahead of schedule, no one expected Ten Hag to obviously get to the top 4 this season. No one expected him to get a League Cup this season. No one definitely expected him not to get to an FA Cup final this season. I'd say you're already well ahead of schedule. And I'd say that you just need another solid season again in which you solidify yourself in the top 4 at the very least, and maybe have a good couple of cup runs between then and now. So that's the bare minimum I would say for Man United. I'd say you're well ahead of schedule, but this has to be the start, in my opinion, if you are obviously to go forward with this. And obviously I say that as a Liverpool fan from the outside looking in. I don't obviously want you to do that. I don't want you to do anything along those lines that would actually make your team any good. But if I am to be neutral and if I am to be honest, obviously I will say that, you know, it's got to be done as far as what United are concerned. I pray that Maguire leaves, but I think he doesn't have the mentality to leave and play regular ball. I mean, he's earning a fair amount. He'll be happy just to run down his contract. He'll say that obviously he wants to stay and fight for his place, but he doesn't fit in with Ten Hag's system at all. So unless he's going to adapt somehow, unless he's going to, I don't know, pick up some pace here and there, unless he's going to play with like roller skates on the end of his boots instead of studs to make him go just that little bit faster so that he can actually turn and actually run back from having a nosebleed on the halfway line, I don't see how he's going to fight for his place when he clearly doesn't fit in with his system. So I don't understand. Like, if you clearly know you don't fit in with a particular system, the only reason you're staying is because money and the comfort. There are teams that would take him, and I still think there is somewhat of a good player in Maguire in terms of he has to be with the right team, and he has to be with the right manager, and he has to be playing under the right conditions and the right level of tactics. West Ham and Aston Villa and Everton instantly stick out in my mind, and I've said that time and time again. Teams that play with a deep defensive line, teams that play on the edge of their own 18-yard area, that is the kind of team that Maguire can fit right into, because he's not having to go far. He's not having to panic when he gets the ball, because he just has to shift the ball out of his feet and get rid and give it to the more creative outlets of the team. He doesn't have to think too much. He just has to sit there, sit in a position, take up that space, and deal with crosses and deal with the ball going in and around him. That's all he has to do in those types of teams. At United, there's a bit more thought to it. There's a bit more, I've got to actually concentrate here. I've got to kind of get the ball out of my feet and move the ball quickly forward. I've got to move the ball out of my feet, or I've got to carry the ball further up the field. Maguire can't do that. Maguire panics. And he's not very quick at reacting. He's more reactive than proactive. He doesn't sense danger quick enough, and he's not quick enough himself. So, yeah, for me, he's only staying there because he's got a bit of comfort and he's got a bit of money to his name. So, it's funny. It's funny to me, obviously being a Liverpool fan, but at the same time, yeah, Ten Hag obviously doesn't rate him, doesn't think he fits the system, and he's right to think that. So that's why he's not playing him as much, which, is not really fair. I want to see more of Maguire making mistakes and more of Maguire messing things up. So, yeah, it is what it is. What are we doing? So yes, we talked about that. What are we doing? We're talking about next. We talked about Harvey Barnes, haven't we? Levi Colwill. Now, I won't talk too much about Levi Colwill because I want to do a video on him in which I focus on him a little bit more. But the news yesterday is that apparently Liverpool are making headway into testing the waters, shall we say, of Levi Colwill's availability. Colwill, a defender that's been on loan at Brighton this past season, had a bit of I'd say breakout season, but he's only played like 17 games in the Premier League. So it's a bit like just under half a season of a breakout season. But he is highly rated, highly talked about, highly touted, and highly sought of. We know that Brighton want to test the waters themselves into seeing whether or not that they can make that loan move a permanent move. But it seems that they may face competition from Liverpool, who are seemingly attracted to the idea of taking him from Chelsea's grasp as well. Unfortunately, this could be a very difficult transfer to take. Chelsea are not willing to sell on the cheap, and they don't really want to sell at all. And when we say that they don't want to sell, obviously everybody has their price. So if a good enough offer was to come in for him, of course, Chelsea would look into the possibility of signing him. It seems that Brighton have had maybe one or two bids that have been turned down by Chelsea in the region of 30 to 40 million. We'll obviously wait and see if anything else does materialise from this. But it does tick a box that Liverpool want to fill in terms of this is a left-sided centre-back that is left-footed, so he provides very good balance there. It's an area that Liverpool are looking at in terms of their defensive ideas. And defensive enforcement and their defensive strengthening. This, in my opinion, would be a good move. And for 20 years of age, of course, he is a player that Brighton have shown he's got something about him for the here and now from this past season. But he's also a player that can obviously be a star defender for the next decade or so. So this one could be very intriguing to look out for. Like I say, it could be difficult to get done because Chelsea are seemingly not wanting to sell. But there are rumours and whispers that if Colwill is a player that wants to leave Chelsea and feels like his career will enhance and get better with a move elsewhere, Chelsea may have to explore that option of selling him more and more. And that could open the gateway for Brighton or for Liverpool to go in hard on this guy and to go in with a bit more force on Colwill going forward. Is Colwill from the youth academy? I believe he is. I believe he's been at the club since he was a kid. So, again, he may have ties there. And it does seem like, again, it's going to be a case of whether or not he believes his football will get more game time under Pochettino, will he get better and bigger over time? I'll be intrigued by this because obviously there's a lot of incomings and outgoings at Chelsea right now, and obviously there are a few in the defensive area as well. We've already seen Koulibaly leave. I think Azpilicueta's also gone. I think there's also a couple more that are on the verge of leaving. Does that open the gateway more for Colwill to be a first teamer this season in that Chelsea system? We know that obviously he's highly rated, highly sought of by a lot of people outside of Chelsea as well as inside Chelsea. And there's a reason why Chelsea obviously do not want to get rid of him. But at the same time, you never quite know with Chelsea. And obviously with them building up a fair amount in their transfer funds with all of these players that they're selling, they could be in for a bit of a spending spree right now. They are probably going to be making a lot of moves for these types of players and for bigger players at that to come in. So we'll wait and see on this. We'll definitely wait and see. But it will be very intriguing. It will be very intriguing to see what the future holds for Levi Colwill going forward and whether or not Liverpool go in for him even more. Like I say, it does fit in with the caliber of player and the type of player that Liverpool are looking for. We know that obviously they're looking to rebuild in midfield. That obviously seems to be heading towards Romeo Lavia. But there has been talk about them wanting to strengthen their defence as well. And obviously with the current state of their defence, Reece Williams is gone. Nat Phillips seems to be leaving. So that's two players, and English homegrown players at that are maybe on the way out of Liverpool. One definitely gone, one on the verge of maybe going for the benefit of obviously his career. That opens a couple of gaps in that defence maybe. There's obviously talk about, maybe Joel Matip, maybe Joe Gomez. Maybe that's more so from the fan base of Liverpool than it actually is in terms of a transfer away. But if Liverpool are to play this 3 at the back formation, Andy Robertson, for me, doesn't benefit from being a left centre-back. As good as what he is, I don't think he's versatile enough. Obviously, time will tell him. Remains to be seen if he could actually adapt to that role. But a left centre-back is definitely what is needed. And I think it will help Van Dijk. I think it will help Konate if that is to be the case. Matip and Gomez, okay, I guess. But at the same time, fell off a lot this season, particularly Gomez. It is definitely needing to be addressed. So we'll wait and see, obviously, if anything else is to come about from this, and obviously if anything is to come about from Levi Colwill, but he could be definitely one to watch this summer. Just confirmation of that. Off topic, but what price do you think is fair for Onana? Inter expecting 50 to 60 million. I'd say 40 to 50 million is solid enough. I think you could go more. I think 50 to 60 million maybe actually the right price, especially when you consider he is a top quality goalkeeper. But I think given Inter's financial issues, I think the way that obviously Onana probably wants to move to Inter, I think you could probably get him for around about 40 million. I reckon 40 million is probably what it'll go for. I think he's a quality goalkeeper. I just really like him as a goalkeeper. I'm obviously not jealous in the slightest because I still think we have the best goalkeeper in the world in Alisson Becker. So not quite kind of jealous in that aspect, but I am kind of jealous that he's going to Manchester United. And I think that when he comes to the Premier League, if he comes to the Premier League, he will become the second best goalkeeper in the league behind Alisson. So, yeah. I'm a bit annoyed that he's probably going to go to Manchester United. Bit annoying. He's probably going to go for about 40 odd million. I think that is probably what the price will be. Maybe 40, 45, somewhere in that region, depending on obviously add-ons and all stuff like that. But I think United will get him, and I think he's going to be the perfect choice. Has done a 39 bid, which got rejected. Yeah. We talked a little bit about that. Apparently, it was like 34 million up front and then 5 million in add-ons. So it's not necessarily about the number. It's sometimes more about the structure as well. What we've seen from obviously this Declan Rice situation as an example is obviously Arsenal sort of hit the kind of figure where West Ham were looking for, but the structure was just off. I just think like 40 to 45 million is what Inter are maybe looking for, and then they can move on. And then from there, they can obviously reach some sort of deal from there. 45 million, I think, is going to be around about the price tag, and yeah, we'll see on that. We'll see if obviously anything does come about. Just on that, like I say, Romano does state as well, 60 million fee for Onana plus add-ons. That's what they want. But as we know, negotiations can often take a bit of a nosedive in that aspect. So we'll wait and see. I've just read the tweet. About Jurrien Timber. Arsenal have just seemingly signed him. After Declan Rice, Arsenal complete also Jurrien Timber deal as expected. Never been in doubt. Direct call today to agree on 40 million euros deal plus 5 million in add-ons. Timber will sign until June 2028, and he only wanted Arsenal. Super excited about the project ahead. Here we go. As stated by Fabrizio Romano, Jurrien Timber to Arsenal. We talked a little bit about him earlier on in this stream, and we said that deal looks increasingly likely. Well, it has been broken by Romano that is now a done and dusted deal. 40 million euros plus add-ons of 5 million. You're looking at roughly between 35 and 40 million overall in terms of pounds and sterling, of course, in this country. But that is a quality move by Arsenal. Arsenal, like I say, not resting on their laurels, not waiting around for the next deal. They're getting straight onto it. And Jurrien Timber is the next in line for unveiling as an Arsenal player. Will they do some sort of double announcement maybe? Maybe it will be one of these things where it's sort of like, I don't know, Declan Rice is on a table signing his contract, and then he passes the pen over to Timber, and who writes it? I don't know what it's going to be. I don't know what the new sort of signing announcement is going to be. But that deal is seemingly done and dusted in terms of this. Fantastic piece of business by Arsenal, in my opinion. Fantastic piece of business for a quality defender that will enhance and strengthen their defence to no end, in my opinion. To be honest, Arteta is a fraud if he doesn't win something big next season. He is going into fourth season without a trophy, and his spend is 700 million. Imagine if Klopp had access to all of those funds. I'm not going to say that Arsenal... we're just talking about it, Jordan. We're just talking about Arsenal signing Timber and what a quality signing that is, in my opinion. Would love to know your thoughts on that, brother. I agree with you. I think Arsenal definitely need to win something next season. I think they need to win with the more money that they spend, the more the expectation rises. And for me, when you spend this kind of money over the past, not just this season, but for the past few seasons, and you haven't even had Champions League football in those seasons. And some teams that have had Champions League football, like Liverpool, haven't spent this amount, shall we say. Whether they've won stuff, whether they've lost stuff, whether they've got top four, not got top four, they haven't. I don't think they've spent this amount of money in one summer window, let alone in the past few years. It's brilliant by Arsenal. It's exciting by Arsenal. It's ambitious by Arsenal. It's got Arsenal fans somewhat optimistic to an extent and towards some of the fan base. But at the same time, you can't not win something this season. Jurgen Klopp, when he first came into Liverpool, he's gotten to a couple of finals in his first, well, not even his first full season. He got them into the Carabao Cup final and the Europa League final. Didn't win them, but over the course of those 2 to 3 years, he got them into multiple finals, built them up, built up their experience, won them the Champions League. And from the Champions League, we built and we went again to win the Premier League. And then we went again. I know that obviously we fell off the season after, but we went again the season after that to, of course, win the double and be 2 games away from winning the quadruple. That was impressive and incredible in itself. This, as optimistic and as exciting as what it seems for Arsenal right now, they need to win something. If Arsenal have a similar season to this, in which they don't get far in the Champions League, they get knocked out of the early stages of the Carabao Cup, they get knocked out of the early stages of the FA Cup, they go second again in the Premier League, at least, that's a poor season. That is a dreadful season, and that is a season in which you may need to look at the squad and go, the squad is there, the manager isn't. And that could be bad news for Arteta, because he may be a good squad builder, but maybe he's not the guy to get you across the finish line. And maybe that could be the case there. Maybe it's a case of we see Arteta as building the squad and getting us close, but then we need to pull the trigger on bringing in a manager who is above him and who is a winner. Someone who's similar, someone who could play a very similar style of play, but just elevate it to another level. Just make this squad find a higher gear to get there. I'm very much intrigued by obviously what will happen this season with Arsenal. They definitely now need to win something, in my opinion. Will they do so or not remains to be seen. Jurrien Timber, fantastic signing, in my opinion. Declan Rice, phenomenal and perfect signing, in my opinion. Kai Havertz, not really sure what was going on with that, but I think as an overall package, maybe it could work. If they were to go out and sign a Tchouaméni, if they are to go out and sign a new striker, if they are to go out and sign a backup right winger to Bukayo Saka, it only increases the pressure and level of expectation more on Arsenal. How much did Klopp spend in total when he won the Champions League? I mean, he didn't really spend anything in his first year. Not in his first season. He didn't spend anything in January. I think the only thing he did was sign that guy from QPR on loan and play him as a striker. And there was a centre-back for some reason. It was at least 50 million, wasn't it, on Fabinho? He brought in Fabinho. He bought in Mane. So that's at least 84 million. Keita, I think, was like 50 million, wasn't he? So that's 134 million. Salah, obviously, another 30 million, 35 million, give or take. So it's at least 170 million on those types of players. I'm not saying he hasn't spent money. Don't get me wrong. Don't get me twisted. I'm not saying he hadn't spent money. I just don't think he spent money without obviously there being something at the end of it. Arteta needs to have something at the end of it. Otherwise, he's a good squad builder, but that should basically just mean he should be a guy who's on the transfer committee, because he can't get them across that finish line. Yes, I agree. He might be a good squad builder, but winners are born, not made. Klopp won the Bundesliga with Dortmund. Ten Hag won Eredivisie 3 times and 3 cups. Arteta has no background, and I think he is too emotional and impacting the players poorly. He's just Pep's protege, isn't he? He's just Pep's protege, and obviously the narrative is all there for Arteta to win trophies and start to win trophies if that is to be the case. The narrative is definitely there for it to be, Klopp and Pep in the spotlight again, getting a mention, and obviously Arteta's rise to winning trophies and building teams and stuff. I'll just say, like I say, he's done very, very well in terms of building up this squad. This squad is probably the best Arsenal squad that we've seen in the past 15 or so years, that may ultimately go on and win nothing. And it's unfortunate because obviously there's a bigger shark in the ocean in terms of Manchester City. But Liverpool have had to put up with that. You know, Liverpool have been mocked for not doing more, and Liverpool have been mocked for not winning more trophies, even though we had opportunities to do so, whether it be get to finals or things like that. But Liverpool have been mocked for not winning Premier League titles when we finished on 96, 93, 92 points or whatever the hell it was. We've been mocked for that because there's a bigger shark in the ocean in Manchester City. It shouldn't be different for Arsenal, and especially not because they've spent money as well. They spent a lot more money. They spent a hell of a lot of money, and they've not had Champions League football to show for it for the past few years. This is the first time in several years that they've actually got Champions League football to show for their efforts. So there's a lot of expectation riding on Arsenal this season. A lot of expectation. And the more that they obviously spend, the more that goes up. And like I say, Tchouaméni could be next if that is to be the case. Obviously, Romeo Lavia. I know there was said to be rumours that Arsenal would supposedly drop in their interest in the Southampton midfielder. But, of course, that could always reignite at any moment. Arsenal don't seem to be done with their transfer business just yet. And they don't seem to be slowing down either. But like I say, with that comes great expectation, comes bigger expectation, bigger responsibility, and bigger ambition. So there's going to be a lot riding on Arsenal this season. There's going to be a lot of pressure riding on Arsenal this season. And like I say, it's going to be interesting to engage the opinion of Arsenal fans going forward because, like I say, there's a lot riding on it this season. It's a make or break season for Arteta. It's a massive season for Arsenal. And like I say, I think at the end of it, if he's got nothing to show for his efforts and nothing to show for the money spent, he has to go. He has to go because how can you spend all of this money and not win anything? Anything. A League Cup isn't enough either. Don't get me wrong. If it's just a League Cup, that's not enough. A League Cup and an FA Cup may be enough as long as you've got something to back it up in terms of maybe a second place finish in the league just behind Manchester City and maybe a good Champions League run as well. That might be enough. But it's about the big ones. It's about your Champions League. It's about your Premier League. And I know that obviously Arsenal are back in the Champions League for the first time in years. So maybe the Champions League may be a bit of a far expectation or a further expectation. But something has to give this season for Arsenal. Something has to give. Trophies is the currency at the end of the day. Absolutely. Absolutely. Trophies is the be-all and end-all. Otherwise, you've just basically got a team of Harry Kanes. Ah, dear. Harry Kane. Jesus. Yeah, I agree with you. I agree with you. Who wins the UCL next season? I mean, you can't really look past Man City right now. You can't look past Man City right now. I think Arsenal could be in with a shout if they continue. It's going to be interesting. It's going to be an interesting one. You probably suspect it's going to be another team from England. Real Madrid may have lost their fear factor this season with what happened against Man City and obviously with losing a couple of key players. Do they have enough firepower? They'll be relying heavily on Vinicius Jr. Doubt it. Barcelona back into the mix, maybe. You know, a bit of a dark horse, that one. Potentially under Xavi. Again, I doubt it, but again, it could be a possibility. Bayern Munich lost their fear factor, in my opinion. PSG, if they work on their squad and make it a more effective and more balanced, well-rounded, and more, what's the word I'm looking for? A more productive squad, shall we say? Shall we say a more productive squad? A more productive squad. Then maybe PSG could be in with a shout again. But you can't look past teams in England. I know it's a little bit of an unfair advantage with them having the most money and all of that stuff. So yeah, I can't see it. The only thing I worry about with Man United is squad depth. They could be dark horses. Don't get me wrong. I'm not going to completely ignore Man United. My only issue with United is squad depth. Do you have enough squad depth? Because that's ultimately what cost you in the Europa League this season. You were massive favourites to go on and win that competition. And especially when Arsenal got knocked out in the previous round, you were definitely massive favourites to go on and win that competition. And arguably, you maybe would have done had your squad depth been deep enough. But that is what I do worry about. I just worry that your squad depth isn't deep enough to maybe go on in that competition as well as other competitions. So I'm not saying you shouldn't be completely discredited or completely written off, but I'm just saying, right now, your squad depth wouldn't suggest to me that you would be considered as favourites to win. That's just my honest opinion. Like, if you went out and got Onana, if you went out and got Harry Kane in particular, then I'd have to change my mind and be like, okay, hold up a minute. Maybe there could be something in this. But obviously, like I say, it remains unlikely on the Harry Kane thing. Depends. Yeah, squad depth needs to be solved. And and it might require one more season and a Qatari window. That's what I've been saying all transfer window, bro. This Qatari transfer and takeover needs to happen ASAP. You're seeing other teams doing other things around you, and you're seeing all these other teams making moves all the way around. But your team has seemingly stood still. And whilst you have signed Mason Mount, it was only, I think it's mainly because Mount wanted that move, but also you were willing enough to meet Chelsea's demands of 60 million in the end. I know you negotiated it down from like 75, 80 million down to 60 million. But I also think it's because Liverpool weren't prepared to pay that 60 million and Arsenal weren't prepared to pay that 60 million, although they paid 60 million for Havertz, which is weird. But at the same time, I just genuinely believe that it's mainly because of the price tag that you guys are willing to pay. But yeah, I think the takeover is holding up a lot of United business. It needs to be solved ASAP. It could happen. Still don't get the Havertz deal. Neither do I, bro. I won't get it until I see it. And if I see that it's going to be a positive thing, and if I see that obviously Arsenal are thriving with having Havertz there, and he's a completely different player, and he's maybe the player that obviously was at Leverkusen all those years ago, maybe, just maybe, I'll start to see what Arteta was thinking about when obviously they decided to put all that money and all that time and effort into this guy. But it seems like there's more hope than expectation, really, as far as what Havertz is concerned. And that's a pretty dangerous belief to hold on to when it comes to a signing of a player. We'll wait and see, though. We'll wait and see. Like I say, Arteta could be a genius, and I just haven't worked it out yet. And a lot of people may not have been able to work it out yet. But Arteta could be a genius. Only time will tell. Only time will tell on that one. I don't get it for the money. I don't get it for the type of player he is. I just don't get it. I just don't get it right now. And Chelsea will be laughing all the way to the bank. And like I say, selling Mason Mount, 60 million. Selling Kai Havertz, 60 million. Selling all of these players to the Saudi Arabian League and recovering quite a bit of money. Moises Caicedo potentially on the horizon. Like I say, expect big moves from Chelsea. That's all I'll say. Expect big moves from Chelsea Football Club going forward, and interesting moves at that. So wait and see, obviously, what Chelsea do in this transfer window. They haven't had the incomings that I thought they would. I know they signed Nicholas Jackson. I know Christopher Nkunku's obviously come through the door as well. But that was obviously prearranged. But yeah, very much interested to see what Chelsea's next kind of moves are in terms of Moises Caicedo. That looks to be likely to happen. And then going forward, anyone else. If you had the option, have Bellingham or your current signing plus Lavia. Our current signings plus Lavia would be what we need more. So I'm going to have to go with that. Like, I'd argue that, and obviously this is on paper, and I hate talking about things on paper until I've seen it with my own eyes going forward on a football pitch, because obviously nothing's ever won on paper. Like, if things were won on paper, Tottenham would have won a couple of Premier League titles probably by now, and they would have won multiple transfer windows, but they haven't. In my opinion, on paper right now, this is the rebuild in midfield that we needed. McAllister, Szoboszlai, and Lavia would be the perfect midfield rebuild, in my opinion. Depending on them, what happens with likes of Thiago, Jordan Henderson, that kind of thing, I think they both need to stay, in my opinion. I think Thiago needs to stay. I'll say that we can get rid of him next season when his contract expires. I think we need to keep Henderson for his leadership. And I don't want to see him play every week. Jesus Christ, I don't want to see him play every week. But I think that he does get a bit unfairly treated by some of our fan base. But for his leadership, for his box-to-box nature, for his experience, we definitely need him for this season at least. And then you add in the new guys that we've got coming in, the youngsters, 22-year-old Szoboszlai, 24-year-old McAllister. If 19-year-old Lavia comes in as well, all young, all inexperienced, all needing some guidance, those players can learn from them types of players. This is the rebuild that we needed. Bellingham, for me, is fantastic, phenomenal. And I would have loved to have seen him in a Liverpool shirt. Of course I would. And the way that we could have just been chanting Hey Jude constantly and actually have it have meaning behind it and actually be directed at a player would have obviously been fantastic. But it's a rebuild and it needed more than one player. And if we weren't going to be having that, if we were needing more than one player, Bellingham would be a good option, but he wouldn't have done it on his own. And then we'd be building for the next 2 to 3 transfer windows. Having this rebuild now, if it all works out, means that we don't have to drag out a rebuild that will take place 2 to 3. And then we'll constantly be playing catch up anyway, because next season, Thiago leaves us. Maybe Fabinho continues his poor form when we decide to get rid. Maybe Jordan Henderson then wants to leave and have a bit of a retirement challenge in Saudi Arabia as a last-second payday. Maybe he wants to link up with Steven Gerrard. Maybe he wants to go back to Sunderland. There's a lot that could go along in that 1 year. I always say, like, a year is a very long time in football. A year is a very long time in football in which a lot of things can happen. So it's not always practical just to go for the big, shiny prize that may work, but it's a team thing. It's a team. It's a squad. We talk about Arteta building up a squad. It's a squad game, and that is obviously what Liverpool need to build in this aspect, in this instance, in this day, present time. Yeah, I honestly believe Liverpool could be very scary if Klopp manages a squad very good. I think we're closer than what a lot of people are not giving us credit for. I think that with this midfield rebuild, like I say, I'll say this again. I would prefer Catherine Thuram over Lavia, but I'm not completely against Lavia. If that's what Klopp wants, I'll happily go with Lavia. I don't think we're that far away. I think our forward line is solid. And barring a major injury to Salah, I think we're solid enough. I think Salah with Diaz, who will be back this season, and hopefully his big injuries are behind him. I think with a season, it's a big season for obviously Diaz this season, but hopefully with his injuries behind him, he can get back to how he first burst onto the scene at Liverpool. I think with Jota's ice-cold finishing, I think with Cody Gakpo's emergence, towards the back end of this season. And I think with Darwin Núñez hopefully now having a year to settle in, he's going to hopefully improve. I think our forward line is solid. I'll reiterate, I think we've got the best goalkeeper in world football right now. I'm happy with that. Our midfield is slowly but surely going through a resurrection and a rebirth. I'm happy with what we're doing so far. Still needs a bit of improvement. Still needs one more player, in my opinion, but hopefully we are going to be getting that in the summer. And now we just need to focus on the back line. Can Konate stay out of the medical room for large parts of the season at the very least? Fingers crossed on that one. Can Van Dijk rediscover the form that made him the best defender in the world for a time? Fingers crossed on that one. Can Joe Gomez rediscover the kind of, he can drop in for a game or two here and there sort of form if we are going to have to keep him? Fingers crossed on that one. Can Trent adapt to being a midfielder a bit more and also being a fullback if needs be? How will he evolve in that midfield role? Fingers crossed on that one. What about Robertson this season? Big season for him in terms of adapting to a new style of play and a new position. Fingers crossed on that one. There is, like I say, the midfield is fine. The strike force, in my opinion, is fine. The goalkeeper situation is perfect. The defense, though, has many question marks on it that right now I'm not entirely convinced upon. Maybe I'm over exaggerating the issues. Hopefully we can sign one or two centre-backs that will help us, even if it's like one permanent signing and maybe one signing on loan. I just think we need to address that situation at centre-back. And I'm not panicking or worried about it. We've still got like a couple of months left of this transfer window. So I'm not worried about it in the slightest right now. But if we get to the start of the season and we get to a point where we're playing games and our centre-backs are not looking strong, they're not adapting to the new system or anything, that's when I will worry. But I must say Trent at right back is not good and weakness for your team when you meet direct wingers. I somewhat agree. There have been times where he has met direct wingers and he's actually kept them quiet and he's been all right with them. There have been times where he's obviously struggled. Like I say, it's always 50-50 when it comes to Trent's defensive attributes. I think that with him moving into midfield, hopefully it can raise his awareness levels and we can provide more cover for him in that aspect. Trent, I think, is going to have a big season in midfield this year. And I'm hoping that we actually do that more. And I'm not against him being at right back for certain games because I think that versatility and that kind of change in formation and change in position will help. I think it will help in some games rather than others. And like I keep saying, if he's having a bad game as a right back in terms of he's getting, I don't know, maybe the winger's getting the best of him, maybe he's not getting the ball as much, we can shift him into midfield. We can switch it around, shift him more into midfield, give him more of the ball, give him more defensive cover. Something along those lines. I think that versatility is going to be very key this season for Trent Alexander-Arnold going forward, and I can't wait to see how he continues to grow and evolve in that position. Many goals came because of Trent's errors, in my opinion. I think some goals definitely did. I think some were shifted the blame onto him when it wasn't necessarily completely his fault. Yeah, well, everybody's got mistakes in them. And I'm just hoping that maybe we can display more of his attacking talent this season than his defensive talents. And I'm not saying he's terrible defensively. We know he is good defensively. We know he's a solid defender from time to time. He just doesn't necessarily show it on a consistent enough basis going forward. So we'll wait and see on that one. We'll wait and see, obviously, what Klopp has in store in this transfer window. Fingers crossed, like I say, we do get at least one or two centre-backs to shore up that defence and then the defensive side of things. I think Levi Colwill, in my opinion, will be a good addition, but whether or not we will actually manage to get him or not remains to be seen. We'll wait and see. We'll wait and see on that one. We'll wait and see, obviously, how Liverpool do going forward. But yeah, it's going to be a very interesting end to this transfer window. Like I said, we've still got a couple of months left. A lot can still happen during that time, of course. But we'll wait and see. But yeah, a lot has taken place today. A lot of permanent signings, a lot of talk in regards to the likes of Andre Onana, Mason Mount, Declan Rice, and obviously Levi Colwell, Harvey Barnes, and whoever else we talked about in this, because there's been so many and so forth. But thank you all so much for watching and listening. Of course, as I always say, these are just the thoughts, comments, opinions, predictions, feelings, whatever you want to call it, of this guy. I want to know what you guys think. Do leave your thoughts, your comments, opinions, predictions, feelings in the chat, in the comment section, wherever it's necessary, whether it's stuff that I talked about, or whether it's stuff that you guys want to talk about for a future video or live stream. I'm sure it'll all make for interesting and great reading down below in the comment section, I'm sure. So do get involved down there. Thank you for everybody for watching and listening and getting involved in the comment section. Thank you to Jordan Hyman, of course. Love to see you later, bro. Thank you to Fab Baby Ambiance. Thank you for getting involved, bro. Hope you're doing well. And of course, Titan Rowan, for all of your thoughts, your comments, opinions, predictions, feelings, all of that good stuff made for an interesting reading and made for an interesting live stream as well. So thank you, everybody, for getting involved. Do hit the like button on the way out if you enjoyed the video. Subscribe if you're new or want to see more content like this. Both things always have fun, be greatly appreciated. And as always, thank you all so much for watching and listening. Once again, I've been Fletch. This has been another all new news live stream, and I'll see you all again soon in another video or live stream or whatever the hell it may be. Thank you all so much, guys. Appreciate it. Peace out.